Running an interview podcast isn't difficult if you can get guests to come on your show and if you can strike up an interesting conversation with them. In this episode, you will learn some best practices in order to get the best out of your guests and also some of the crucial tools that I recommend to stay organized and with managing your guest outreach. Welcome to the Podcasting University. Looking for help on starting your own podcast? Then this is the place to be. We will help you with everything from selecting your topic to promoting and monetizing your podcast in the simplest language possible. Listen to other podcasters who've been through the grind and learn from them as we interview them every week. You can find more details on thepodcastinguniversity.com. Hi, this is Dilip and welcome to another episode of the Podcasting University. This is episode number 66 and we are continuing the conversation that we started in the last episode. So if you haven't listened to episode number 65 where we spoke about the preparations and the planning to run an interview format podcast, then I would recommend that you listen to it first. Now, continuing on with the conversation. Today, we are going to look at some best practices and some recommended tools so that you stay organized and more productive. But before we get started, I would like you to know that these are best practices from my experience, and these are things that I have done in my podcasting journey. But if you have some such best practices that you would like to continue following, please feel free to do that. And if there is something that you would like to share with me, please feel free to drop me a note and I would love to hear from you. So with that, let us get on to today's conversation. Best practices. Best practices for an interview format podcast. So, number one, keep your communication channels open even with the guests who did not respond to your guest outreach requests. Now, we have a tendency to think negative about people who reject our outreach or who do not respond to our outreach. And when we think negative about these people, we tend to hold a grudge or a very negative outlook to these kind of people or to anybody who's rejected us. Please don't hold a grudge against the guest who rejected your outreach or who did not respond to you. Understand that they are humans who made the best decision for themselves, which is what you would also do if you were in their place. So understand their perspective and keep the communication channels open. You never know when you will be able to get that guest on your show at a later point. So ensure that you're not holding grudge against the guest who rejected your outreach request and you're keeping your communication channels open. Number two, all recorded interviews aren't necessary to be released. Now this is a dilemma that a lot of podcasters get into. You've invited a guest, you recorded a show, and then you find that there is a problem with that show. Either that show doesn't provide enough value, or there is an audio quality, or some or the other problem, because of which you don't want to release that show. But now you're in a dilemma as to what to do. Should you release the show because the guest would be waiting for the show to be released, or should you not release the show? Now the recommendation is that you as a host has the choice to decide which episodes to publish and which not. So when you do that, so if you think that for some reason there is this episode that shouldn't go out or that you wouldn't like to publish, please feel free to not publish it. But then when you do that, let your guest know that you won't be releasing the episode and the reason why you are not doing that. Being truthful will reward you and build a better relationship with the guest. And maybe you'll be able to get them again on your show and talk to them again and create a conversation where you'll be able to find even better value so that you can release that episode. Number three, set the right expectations with your guests. Ensure that you're keeping your guests informed of when you are planning to release the episode. Now, there are a few podcasters that I've spoken with who've recorded a lot of episodes, who've done a batch recording, recorded multiple episodes, multiple interviews, and they've edited it and kept it ready. But they haven't released it. In fact, they have no plans of when they are going to release it. This is a big no-no. Your guest spends time to come on your show and be on that interview with you. So ensure that you're valuing their time. Keep them informed of when you're planning to release the episode. If for some reason you missed the schedule, then do let them know that you missed the publishing schedule and you will publish it on whatever date you're planning to publish that. Value the time of every guest who agrees to come on your show and give you an interview. They deserve to be informed about the progress. So ensure that you inform them. Number 4, share your episode link with the guest so that they can listen to it, and also share it with their social media circles. And one expectation that we have with most of our guests is that they share the episodes with their social media circles. But while we have that expectation, we don't make it easy for them to do that. So what I recommend is to check with them if they would like you to send across a few creatives that they can use to share the episode on their social media circles, and send across a few creatives and write a good description so that they can go and share it with their social media circles. We are about 5 minutes into today's episode. I hope you're enjoying this conversation. If you are, then please take out a few minutes from your schedule and give the show a rating on Apple Podcasts. Your ratings and your reviews will help in the overall ranking of this show and will also help people who want this information find this podcast. Now, let's continue with the conversation. Number 5, an interview outline. I always recommend keeping an outline for your interview. And if possible, send across the outline to your guest as well, so that they can come prepared. Now, this helps both you and your guests. You don't want a guest to come on your show who appears lost and who doesn't know what to answer for a specific question. If you can send across an outline for your interview to your guest, they will come prepared. Though they might not be prepared with all the answers, they will come with some preparation. This will help you reduce a lot of the dead air and the fillers, because your guests won't be spending time thinking what to say or what to answer to that question of yours. Number 6, don't always go for celebrities and influencers. Understand that what you are out there is to provide value to your listeners. And some of the lesser known names out there can provide a lot of value and might be loved and liked by your audience. So don't always go for those big names. Look for guests who can actually provide value to your audience. Now, those were 6 best practices from my personal experience. Now, let us get on to the tools that I recommend that you use for your podcast. Now that we are prepared for our interview podcasts and we know what are some of the best practices that we need to follow to get the best out of our guests, let us look at some tools that can simplify your guest outreach, keep you organized and look professional, and also get the most out of your time. So here are 6 tools that I recommend if you are planning on running an interview format podcast. Number 1, a scheduling tool. Now, there are a lot of scheduling tools out there, and the 2 prominent ones are Calendly and TidyCal. I use TidyCal, and I would recommend that you go for TidyCal because TidyCal is a very low-cost scheduling tool. It is only $29 today. You will be able to find that on appsumo.com. I'll leave a link in the show notes, and it gives you a ton of features that a lot of the other tools will charge you a bomb. Calendly is a monthly subscription. You can create one calendar for free, but if you're looking at creating more calendars, you will have to take their premium subscription. It's a monthly subscription. I recommend TidyCal. Both of these tools will help you with scheduling your interviews with your guests. It'll avoid a lot of the to and fro that will usually happen on what is the best time for you, what is the best time for your guests, etc. And it'll make you appear more organized and professional as well. Number 2, a website where your guest can read more about you. Now, something that I cannot stop emphasizing is putting together a website. And I recommend that you put together a website even before you've launched your podcast. It need not be a very hi-fi kind of a website with a lot of information and a lot of dynamic elements in there. Put a very simple website together using maybe WordPress. Buy a domain name which is either the same as that of your podcast or anything that relates to it. Put together a website which talks about your credentials and your past work. This website will help your guests know and read more about you, which will build even more credibility for you and the possibility of your guest agreeing to come on your podcast. Number 3, a diary and a pen. Now, this is something that I always recommend, and I ensure that I keep a diary and a pen when I do my interviews. What this does is it helps you take notes. It helps you take notes about very specific golden nuggets that your guests share on your show. Number 2, it helps you mark points during the conversation that you can use for follow-up questions, because a conversation isn't about using those pre-written questions. It is about following up on the answers that your guests give so that you can build on the conversation and derive more value out of that conversation. And number 3, it can help you with editing, because it helps you take editing notes. You can note down points or timestamps where you think that you will have to edit. And you can also note down timestamps for those nuggets that you can use in your teasers. Number 4, a good image editing tool like that of Canva or Vista Create. I use Vista Create, which is a paid tool. Canva comes for free. You can use Canva, or you can even go for the premium version of Canva. Now, what this does is it helps you create professional looking images and creatives. Keep in mind that creatives play a very important role, visual aspect. Visually, how you are able to portray your podcast plays a very important aspect in getting dedicated listenership. There are a lot of templates that are available with both Canva and Vista Create. You can pick any of these professionally designed templates and customize it according to your needs and create some amazing graphics and creatives for your show and for your promotion as well. Number 5, Zencastr to record your interviews. Now, I see a lot of people using Zoom to record the interviews. I'm not against Zoom. Please feel free to use it if that is something that you like using. But I would recommend using a professionally developed interviewing tool, because that gives you the best quality audio. Though I don't recommend that your audio has to be Dolby quality, but it still needs to be good quality. So when recording interviews, use something that is made specifically to record interviews. Zencastr gives you excellent video quality and audio quality as well, and it is free. You don't have to pay anything for them. If you go with the premium version, you get some more added features, which ideally isn't even required if you're doing an interview format podcast. I wouldn't recommend going with Zoom. Either use Zencastr or Riverside. These are the 2 tools that I recommend to record your interviews. And number 6, Audacity. Audacity is the best audio editing app, hands down, and the simplest one. You don't need to master Audacity, but there are a ton of features out there. Use only the basic editing features. You will get amazing sounding audio for your show, and it is easy to edit as well. Those are the 6 tools that I recommend. I hope you enjoyed this information that I shared with you today. If you did, then do visit thepodcastinguniversity.com for the show notes and the printable transcript for this episode. You will find links to all of the resources that I spoke about on thepodcastinguniversity.com. Do visit and leave a comment out there about what you thought about this episode. And if there is anything else that you would like to hear from me, please leave a comment there, and I would like to create an episode around that. Now, that is all that I have for this episode. The Podcasting University is available on pretty much all podcasting platforms, including the prominent ones like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Gaana, JioSaavn, and Amazon Prime Music. Pick your favorite podcasting platform and give it a listen in there. We are also there on Good Pods, so don't forget to follow me on Good Pods and give me a rating there. I'll be back again the next week with another interesting information around podcasting. Until then, subscribe to the show and keep listening to the Podcasting University.